Hey guys, Carl from Purple Moose Plays. Today I'm taking a look at Bandada, a small card drafting dice manipulation game for 1 to 2 players from new designer Chase Estep. This game got a lot of attention in the 2020 9-card PNP Design Challenge on BGG, and it should be coming out later this month on Kickstarter. I have been given a prototype copy of the game by the designer for this preview, but with that being said, let's head down to the table to see how the solo mode plays. In fact, this time I'm going to be doing 2 playthroughs with the 2 different solo modes in this game, and then I'll meet you back up here to let you know what I think. To set up a solo game of Bandada with the AI opponent, begin first by placing the scoring cards off to the side of the table. And then putting a cube for both yourself and the AI player over there next to the scoring cards. Those will be used at the end of each round and then finally at the end of the game to tally up the scores for both yourself and the AI player. Next, take the bird cards and shuffle those. Placing them up here. And take the 12 dice, roll them all to start the dice array at the beginning of the game. You're going to then sort them into color. I like to put them in numerical order. It doesn't really matter, but it just makes it easier for me to see what I've got when I do it that way. And then finally, turn over the top 2 cards of the bird deck to set up the first draft of the game. And I'll explain how that works in a minute as I talk about how the game is played. But before that, there are 2 optional modules that we can also add to the game, and those are bonus scoring goal cards and specialization pawns. And I'm going to be playing with both of those in my playthrough today. So I'm going to first take those bonus scoring goal cards and shuffle them up. We will choose one of them for me, which I will place right down here, and I'll explain how that works in a minute. And then I'm going to draw one more for the AI player, and I'll stick that over here. That's going to remain down, face down until the end of the game. And at the end of the game, we'll flip that over to see how the AI scores that. But I'll explain that as well as soon as we get into how the game plays. Next, the specialization pawns are these 3 different meeples that match the 3 colors of the dice. And we're going to draw one of those at random. So for this game, I have the blue specialization pawn, and again, I'll explain what that does as we talk about gameplay in just a minute. Bandada is going to play out over a series of 4 rounds, and each round, what we're going to do is we're going to draft one of these 2 cards. And then the card that we don't draft gets given to the AI player. But let's wait to explain that for a minute, and let's take a look at the cards. When you draft a card, you're going to look at 2 things. First, you'll look at the top of the card here, and this tells you an action that you need to do to the dice immediately after drafting this card. And then, at the bottom of the card is a scoring condition for that card. And the scoring condition is going to trigger at the end of the round for all cards that you have in your own personal Bandada. So again, we're going to draft the card, we're going to completely do whatever the action says at the top of the card. Sometimes it's multi-step like this one here, and sometimes you're given a choice. And then we're going to add this card into our personal Bandada. And then at the end of the round, which will be now after we give the other card to the AI, we will trigger the scoring on all of the cards that we have at that point in our Bandada, which means at the end of the first round, we'll have 1 scoring card. At the end of the second, we'll have 2. End of the third, we'll have 3. And finally, at the end of the 4th and final round, we will have 4 cards that score. I'll explain those actions and those scoring as we do the playthrough because it'll make a whole lot more sense then. And as I mentioned, the other card that's remaining after we draft the card will get placed over here in the AI's stack. And all the AI is going to do is they're going to look in this bottom corner and there's a number there. In this case, it says 6 points. So at the end of the game, the AI will simply score 6 points for having that card. So I also want to sort of pay attention to those points as I'm drafting, because if I can't really choose between 2 cards, it's better to choose the lower point value to give to the AI. In addition, at the end of the game, because we are using these hidden bonus scoring cards, I will also be scoring extra points based on one of these 2 conditions, whichever is the highest scoring of the 2. So I'm either going to score the equal of all of the blue dice added together, or 3 points for every 4 that are showing in the dice at the end of the game. Now the AI is not manipulating the dice, so they're not going to ever score based on the dice. So instead, at the end of the game, I will turn over this AI's card, and also in the bottom left corner of these cards is a point value, and the AI will simply score that number of points at the end of the game. Finally, the last thing we're scoring with or playing with are these specialization pawns. And what this is going to do is it's going to let me once at the end of every round before scoring manipulate one die of the color matching my pawn, either +1 or -1 before scoring. In addition to that, as well, during that same time before scoring, I could remove this pawn from the game and swap one of my cards in my own Bandada with the card at the top of the deck here, which means I don't know what I'm getting. So I would only want to do that in case where I have a card that's not really going to score me much and I'm hoping to get one that will. But if I choose to do that, again, I remove this pawn from the game. I will put my card in a discard pile off to the side, and I will take the top card here and place that in its place in my Bandada. It's worth mentioning though that after I've done that, I no longer have my specialist pawn, which means I can never do that +1, -1 manipulation at the end of the rounds for the rest of the game at that point. So that's basically it for the rules. So I'm going to go ahead and get into the playthrough, and I hope that any questions you have will become more clear as we play through. Again, I will talk more about the actions and the scoring conditions as we play. All right, so now I need to draft my first card. So let's take a look at the two cards that are on the table so I can explain sort of what I need to do and what I'm looking for as we get into things. The first thing I want to do is look at the scoring conditions, because the scoring conditions are going to sort of dictate which card I want to draft and how I want to best manipulate the dice to match that scoring condition and score the most points I can. So if we look at this first card, it says we're scoring 4 points for any colored large straight of 6 numbers. That means I'm looking for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 in any color. So if we look at the dice right now, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but only once, because we only have 1, 2, and only 1, 3. So I would be scoring 4 points instantly here, and I could potentially manipulate some things to possibly get more. So let's hold off on that. The other card says I'm scoring 4 points per same colored small straight. So in this case, I want 4 numbers in a row. For example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. But they have to be in the same color. So in this case, I do have a 2, 3, 4, 5, which is great. But otherwise, the other two don't give me anything. So I will be scoring 4 on that, but no more. And I think I have more chance of scoring more small straights than I do of large straights, because I don't think that I'm going to get, well, even if I did, there's 12 dice, I could have 2 large straights or 3 small straights. So I'm going to try and aim for the small straights. Yes. And both of these cards are worth 6 points for the AI, so I'm happy to take this one. So I'm going to add this to my personal Bandada. And what that means is I have to give one black die a +2, and then split -2 between yellow dice. And split means I can choose to either do -1 for 2 dice or -2 for 1 die. That's my choice. So I definitely have to increase one black by 2. So we've got 1, 4, 4, and 6. And there's one thing that's worth mentioning is that the numbers do wrap. So if I increase this 6 by 2, it would become a 2. Vice versa, if I subtracted 1 from this 1, it would become a 6. They wrap in both directions. So I need to add a +2 to something, and I'm hoping to make a straight. It's not going to happen this turn, but if I increase this twice to a 3, I'm closer. So in a future turn, I might be able to get a straight out of that. So I don't mind that. Then we have to do a -2 between yellows. And let's see. If I do -1 here, that's a 6. So I want to do that. That's a 6. So that would be perfect because 1, 4, 5, or sorry, 4, 5, 6, 1 is wrapping. So that would be a straight, but I still have to do a -1 somewhere else. And unfortunately, that's going to ruin things for me. Yes. So I'm going to, we know we score on 4s at the end with my bonus, so I might as well turn this into a 4 and hope that either I score on 4s later on, or I can fix this and make it a straight again. So we'll stop there. And now we score. Let me move these up a little bit so you can see my cards a little bit better. Okay, so you can't see from far away possibly, but this, remember, says 4 points for every small straight. Here I have 2, 3, 4, 5. That is one small straight. The other two, unfortunately, are not. We've got one die that messes up both of the other two. So I'm going to score 4 points. Let me just undo that for 1 second. If I wanted to, because I have this blue piece, I could manipulate one of these 4 blue dice up 1 or down 1, but that's the only one that's helping me right now. So I'm not going to change that, and I will take the 4 points for a single small straight. And then again, this card gets given to the AI for endgame scoring. That will be 6 points for the AI at the end of the game. And we move into the second round. So again, we turn over 2 cards for drafting, and let's take a look at the scoring conditions first. So this one is going to score me points based on sets of 3 of any color. But if we look carefully, 0 gets me 7 points and 4 gets me -1 points. So this one actually wants me to not have 3 sets of 3 in any color. So I want to make sure that I only have up to 2 of any single number as much as possible to score well on this card. And this wants me to gain 1 +2 in yellow and split -2 on blue. I'd rather not change blue if we can help it, but let's see what the other card says. All right, in this case, I have to give 3 blues a +1, and I'll score 1 per every 6 that I have. But that's only changing blue, and I would like to change some yellows if I can do something about it. All right, let's see what happens. If we change yellow, I have to add a +2, and I could change that 6 into a 2, but this double 4 is a problem, and a double 4 is going to become a 6, and then we have a double 6, so that doesn't change anything as far as the straight for yellow. And a -2 between blue, I suppose, yeah, no, -2 between blue is not going to help. But it could. I could change this one to a 6, and then it would wrap. And if we did that, I would have 3 6s, 3 4s, and that's it. Just 2 sets of 3. If I changed this, nothing's going to become, this would become a 6. But we lose our straight. So I don't like that. I'm going to take this card. So I'm going to give 1 yellow +2. And I'm going to give this yellow a +2, changing, no, hold on. We want to make sure that we don't have sets of something. And I do want to wrap this to a 6. So if we have 3 6s, that's a problem. So I don't want to have 6s. So I'm going to give this 6 a +2 and change that to a 2. And then split -2 between blue. I'm going to change this to -1 is to a 1, and -1 more is to a 6. This card goes to the AI, and now we get into scoring. If I want to change a blue, I can, but I don't want to because we're set up for that straight. So here I've got 3, 4, 5, 6 is a straight. This is still not a straight. This is definitely not a straight. So I get 4 points for my straights. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then sets of 3 in any color. 6s, I don't have a set. 5s, I don't have a set. 4, I do. I have 3 4s. And these 2 is not enough. 2 3s, a 1 and a 2. So I only have 1 set of 3. And 1 set of 3 gets me 4 points. So now I'm at 12 points. And we go into round 3. All right, so here we've got, this card is scoring me 1 point for every yellow less than 4. And I have to re-roll 2 yellow dice, which gives me less control over what's going on. This one is scoring me 1 point for every even yellow, and I'm going to flip a black and re-roll a blue. Now, I would really rather not re-roll a blue because I know I have a straight there. And flipping a black is not going to help me because a 4 becomes a 3 becomes a 4, and that becomes a 1. I want to avoid straights. So, less than 4. All right, I'm going to take this less than 4. I have 2 that are already less than 4, and I'm going to re-roll these 2 yellows. And I get a 4 and a 6, which is actually a really bad thing because now I just made another group of things, which I don't like. All right, this goes to the AI. Straights. I don't want to manipulate blue with my blue again because that's the only one that's giving me a straight, and that's lots of points. So I've got 1 straight. 4, 6, 1, 2. Nope, that would need to be a 5. That doesn't help me. And black didn't change, so still no straight. So that's 4 points. There is 16. This one, sets of 3. Now I have 3 6s, 3 4s. Nothing else is a set. So that's 2 sets is 2 points. We're at 18. And now I'm scoring 1 per yellow less than 4, which is only 2 of them. So I get 2 points for that. And we move into the 4th and final round. We'll flip this over. We'll flip this over. Now, moving into the final round, I do want to remember my scoring condition for extra points at the end is 3 for every 4, which I do have 4 of right now, would be 12 points. But it's also the total of the blue dice, and my blue dice right now is the highest small straight that I can have on the blue dice. So I wouldn't mind trying to keep that the way that it is right now. Unfortunately, it looks like both of these are going to make me change. However, this card right here is going to manipulate blue +1, and I have this piece right here that's going to let me manipulate blue +1 or -1 at the end, so I can undo that. And this scores for blacks over 4, which I have 3 of. And this is worth 8 points for the AI, and this is worth 7 points for the AI. So I'm going to take this one. I will give the AI this card right here. And yeah, so I have to give 1 blue +1, which doesn't matter because I'm going to undo it in a minute, and give 1 yellow -1. Now, if I change this 4 to a 3, now it's below 4, so I score for this card, and I have a 6, 1, 2, 3, which is another straight, which is wonderful. All right, so then we go into scoring, but before we go into scoring, I am going to use my blue piece to turn this back into a 5. So straights, 3, 4, 5, 6 is 1, 6, 1, 2, 3 is 2, so 2 times 4 is 8, and 20 is 28. Sets of 3, I do have 3 6s, that's 1 set. I do have 3 4s, that's 2 sets. And now I have 3 3s, unfortunately. That's 3 sets, which is 0 points. I don't score on that card. 1 per yellow less than 4 is 3. 1, 2, 3 is 31 points. And finally, 1 per black 4 or higher, which is 3. So 3 more is 34. Okay, and then we're going to now at the end of the game score my bonus scoring card. I do have 3 4s, which would be 12 points, but the total of the blue dice is 5 and 6 is 11, and 4 is 15, and 3 is 18. So 18 is higher. 34 and 18 is 44, 52. And that's my total for the game. So now we need to look at the AI's cards. So we've got a 7, an 8, so 7 and 8 is 15, a 9, 9 and 15 is 24, a 6 and 24 is 30, and then the bonus scoring card for the AI is 10. So they end up with a score of 40. So I've won the game 52-40. So now I'd like to show you one more playthrough, this time using the solo adventure variant. So let me clear things up and restart, and I'll show you exactly how that version plays. All right, so we've gone ahead and reset everything. I've taken a new scoring goal card for the end game, and I have now equal to the highest 3 dice, or 3 points for each one. The bird cards have all been shuffled and placed here, and the dice have all been rolled and placed back out. For the solo adventure mode, we're also going to keep this meeple piece. However, in the solo adventure mode, we can't use this to manipulate dice at the end of the round. It's only going to be a one-time use to swap out a bird card with the deck. So for the solo adventure mode, the game comes with a bunch of these different scenario cards that are all in different countries, and then there are multiple scenarios for each country that give you a little bit of a story, a requirement, what you need to win the game, and also sometimes special setup or special end game goals that you can try and meet as well. So for this playthrough, I'm going to be using Scenario 1 in Guatemala. Now this one is going to be a 4-star scenario. I've never tried this one before, but I've played a bunch of the others, and I thought I would challenge myself for this video. So we go ahead and read the story. It says, your time in Guatemala is short, but you're here on a mission to find and photograph the azure-crowned hummingbird and the resplendent quetzal. Both are found in the pine oak woodlands of the area, but it won't be an easy task. So it says here the special setup for this game is I need to start the game with the resplendent quetzal face down in my tableau. So I'm going to start with this card face down in my player area. And then my requirement is I need to finish the game with the azure-crowned hummingbird in my tableau, and I have to finish with at least 38 points. Now it does say because I already have a card in my tableau, we're only playing this game over 3 rounds. It would be 4 rounds like the AI mode as well, but in this case we're going to be playing 3. So I'll set this off to the side so we remember what's going on. And again, I need to find the azure-crowned hummingbird. So that means when the hummingbird comes up, I'm going to need to take that as my draft card for the round, and I won't have any choice otherwise, but I can use this to swap it out if I don't like it. Now, in the solo adventure mode, we're actually going to be putting out 3 cards for every draft. I'm going to choose one of them to add to my tableau, and the other 2 will be discarded. So again, we're looking for the azure-crowned hummingbird, and so far it's not out. So we've got score 1 point for ones, 1 point for even yellows, and 4 points for any colored large straight. So I've got 4 ones, and I've got 2 even yellows. I like the 4 ones. And I get to flip a black and re-roll a blue. No, that's even yellows. 1 per 1, I get to flip a yellow and a black. I don't mind that. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to take that card. I'm going to flip a yellow and a black, and I also am scoring 3 points for each one at the end of the game if I can get a lot of ones. So I wouldn't mind pushing just to keep getting ones in this game. So I get to flip a black, and if I flip this 6, that flips to a 1, so that's great. And now I have to flip a yellow. Of course, I'm not flipping one of the ones. A 2 makes a 5, and a 4 makes a 3. Right now, it doesn't matter. But I'm going to do 3, because if we end up needing a straight, 1, 2, 3 would be nice to have. So we'll do that. And I score 1 per 1, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points. And I'll get rid of this cube because there is no AI this game. And that's the end of the first round. So these cards get discarded, and we deal out 3 more. And you'll see here that this card contains the azure-crowned hummingbirds. So that means I'm required to draft this card if I'm going to win the game. So I will take this card and add it to my tableau, discarding these 2. And now let's take a look at what that card is. All right, so this again is sets of 3 of any color, or in any color. But this is the opposite of the card we had in my previous playthrough, in that I'm scoring high points for lots of sets rather than few sets. So in this case, I want lots of the same numbers in any color. So we're going to take that. And I have to re-roll 2 blue or re-roll a black and a yellow. I don't want to re-roll blacks and yellows, probably. And I'm looking for matches. Hold on. I've got 2 5s. I need 3 in any color. 2, 2. All right, I'm going to stick with, but I've got 2 3s, I've got 2 2s, I've got 2 5s. I don't want to kill both of those 5s. So I am going to roll black and a yellow. I'm going to take this 4, and it doesn't matter either the 2 or the 3. Let's take the 3 and see what happens. All right, I rolled a black 4. Oh, I got another yellow 1, which is great. Because now we score 1 point per one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2, 3, 4, hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ones. So we're at 11 points. And I'm scoring per sets. I've got 1 set of 3 ones. I've got a second set of 3 ones. And unfortunately, I've got 2 2s and 2 5s, so those don't count. I've got 2 sets, which gets me 2 points. And that's the end of the second round. I could use this to swap things, remember, before I score, but so far I'm happy with what's coming out. All right, so this is going to be the final round of the game again, because I started with this card according to the story, I don't get a chance to get a 4th card this time, but now I get to choose any of these. And I can score 1 point per yellow, 3, 4, 5, which I don't think is going to happen. 1 point for odd blacks, which would be great because I like 1s. Or 1 point per yellow less than 4, which right now is all of them, but I'd have to re-roll, and I don't want to get rid of 1s. So I'm going to take odd blacks gets me 3 points, and I flip 2 blues. Yes, I'm going to take that. And now let me think about this, because I score 3 points for each one or equal to the highest 3 dice. And right now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which is already 18 points. Unless I can have 3 6s, yeah, so I'm going to stick with 1s. So I want to flip 2 blues to help score other things better. If I flip a 5, I get a 2. So that's 2, 2, 2. So now I have another set. And I don't want to touch that 1 or kill another 2, so I'm going to flip this to a 2. It doesn't help, but why not? Now, 1 per 1 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points. 6 and 13 is 19. Then sets of 3 in any color. I have 2 sets of 1s, and now I have a set of 2s, so that's 3 sets for 4 points. 1, 2, 3, 4 is 23. 1 per odd black is going to be 3, so 26. And that is the end of the game, but I score my bonus scoring card, which says equal to the 3 highest dice right now would be 2, 3, 4, which would only be a 9, which is horrible. But I have 6 1s, and 6 1s at 3 points each is 18. So 26 is 36, and 36 and 8 is 44. And if we take a look at my card, it says I needed 38 points to win. I scored 44 points, so I have successfully beaten the scenario. When you complete the scenario, you can flip the card over, and there's a continuation of the story. In this case, it says, the azure-crowned hummingbird is very quick as it zips from flower to flower, but you managed to get a few photos worthy of publication. Unfortunately, the day ended before you could get a decent photo of the resplendent quetzal. You have one more day, though. So remember, as I said before, I'm not going to be playing through it right now, but the story does continue in scenario 2. And now in scenario 2, you'll see the requirement is I finished the game with the resplendent quetzal in my tableau. So I'm trying again to find that bird. And this one's going to score me extra points for every other hummingbird that I find as well. So the story does sort of tie into what's happening in the adventure mode, and that's pretty cool. We'll talk a little bit more about that in my review. Now, usually I do talk about components and inserts and so on when I talk about things, but as this is a Kickstarter preview, all of this is prototype quality, so everything here could potentially change. The only thing I do know for sure is not changing is the artwork, and I just want to take a look at the artwork for a minute. This is sort of public domain artwork from old nature books and so on, but I really love the choices that were made in the art for this game. And it's really cool that all of the birds in the pictures are actually described below as what they are. And when you play the solo adventure mode, those birds actually tie into the story that you're playing. So I really like the idea that the art isn't just random birds, but that the birds have some sort of meaning in the gameplay as well. With all that being said, meet me back up top and we'll talk about how I feel about this game. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the playthroughs. I'm going to sort of do what I do every time and just come right out up front and tell you I really enjoyed this game. Since I got this prototype, I've played it dozens of times and I've been having a lot of fun every time I play this game. It's got a really nice sort of puzzle aspect to it, and I really enjoy what that puzzle gives for me every time I dive into this game. So let's talk more specifically about what it is that I enjoy about the game. There are sort of two main mechanisms going on here, the card drafting and this sort of dice manipulation puzzle. We'll start with the card drafting because that's sort of the smaller of the two. If you've ever played the game Tussie Mussy from Button Shy, this might be something that's somewhat familiar to you. And if you haven't ever played that game, I recommend after this video, go check out my video on Tussie Mussy. But anyway, back to the point here. If you've played Tussie Mussy, you sort of understand this idea of drafting cards and then having the card that you've drafted determine the scoring goals that you're going to score points for at the end of the round or at the end of the game, etc. The difference here though is that in Tussie Mussy, the card that you're drafting is scoring, not only setting the scoring goal, but is actually part of the scoring itself, because that card is going to either fulfill those goals or not fulfill those goals. And in this case, that's not happening because this is a dice game. And the dice are going to be everything that controls how you score in this game. Also, the way that the drafting works in Tussie Mussy is different, but that's fine. It's a different game. We're not talking about Tussie Mussy. We're talking about this game, and in this game, we're drafting cards just by taking one of the cards presented to us. 2 in one mode or 3 in the other solo mode, but either way, I'm selecting a card. But in this game, right, every card that I take, not only is it setting the scoring goal, but it's giving me some kind of dice manipulation that I must do when I take that card. So not only am I considering what is the scoring goal that I think I can score the most points on based on what the dice are showing me at that time, I have to also consider, is there a way that I can manipulate the dice in such a way that I still score points on that scoring goal? Because it might be that all of the dice that I'm using to score that scoring goal are going to change when I manipulate them following the action on the card. So there's this double layer of information and decision space that comes every time we draft one of these cards. And I really like that idea. I can't just take a card like, ooh, I want to score that because the dice are matching that. I have to think, what can I twist to change to make the dice match the goal to score points? And then there's even one further step beyond that, because at the end of every round, we're scoring on all the cards that we've taken thus far in the game. So that means every time I draft another card, I need to think, how can I maximize points based on the goals that I've already taken, while also maximizing scoring on the goals that I'm taking now? And that gets more and more tricky every round because we're adding these different levels of goal that we try to score on. So I have to constantly be balancing and evaluating the dice. And now I'm sort of talking about the dice, so let's talk about the dice anyway. The other piece of this, which I've already started to talk about quite a bit, is the dice manipulation. And that's the heart of this game, and that's what I love so much about this game. I'm a big fan of dice. I'm a big fan of rolling dice to set up a situation that's randomly different every time you play a game, and that's how this game starts. But once the game starts that way, most of the actions on the cards are manipulating the dice in ways that I can predict what's going to happen. Right? Either flip a die to the other side, increase by 1, increase by 2, decrease by 1, decrease by 2. These are all things that I understand what's going to happen when I do them, so I can plan for those goals. I can think about which goals are going to come out and what I need to do to which dice to make my dice match the goals that I've got or the goals that might come out later. If you want to start planning ahead, you can probably do that after you've played this game enough times and know the goals that are coming up, because there are only a few cards in the game. In addition to that, there's also a couple action cards that make you re-roll the dice, and that's where things get twisted a little bit. Because when I re-roll the die, is that going to change things dramatically? In a good way? In a bad way? Will it hurt me? Will it help me with the goals? And that's something that adds fun for me. You know, the extra randomness might not be for you if you don't like that randomness in a game. But for me, it does a couple of things. Yes, I take the risk that rolling a die is going to ruin something that I need, but I will do my best to avoid rolling dice that I don't want to change for the goals that I'm aiming for. But also, sometimes if I have a die that's not helping me with a goal and I see an action that lets me re-roll that die, and there's a chance, however small, that whatever comes out of that die might help with the goal, that's exciting, right? It's sort of a push your luck piece to this game. And the game isn't really a push your luck game, but that small piece is kind of a push your luck. And when I roll a die and it comes up the exact number I needed to score one of my goal cards, it's a really good feeling. And it's sort of a cheerable moment in the middle of this tiny solo game. And I like that that's there. So I'm happy to see that little bit of randomness sprinkled into the game. So yeah, this idea of drafting cards to set the goals that you're going to score for, that also forces you to manipulate dice in different ways, and then also thinking about how you manipulate those dice and which dice you manipulate. All of this puzzle together is really, really interesting to me, and I really like the way it plays. And again, this is a short game. It's a small game. It's not going to take a long time. So if for some reason one game goes poorly, it doesn't matter because it's over so quickly that you can just re-roll and start right up again. And the next game, I promise, will be better than the bad game that you had the one time. So let's talk more specifically about the two different solo modes, right? We've got the AI mode and we've got this sort of story adventure mode. The AI mode first. I do enjoy the fact that the AI mode gives me a puzzle that's different every time and that I could play forever with some level of variability. Now, there's not a huge level of variability because the number of cards is not huge. Yes, I can choose whether I use the hidden bonus or not use the hidden bonus. I would recommend to always use the hidden bonus because I think I like that it adds that extra little bit of scoring at the end of the game. Whether or not you use that specialization pawn is up to you. It does make things a little bit easier and it doesn't hurt the AI, or sorry, help the AI in any way. So I don't know if that's good for the solo game or not. But the main point here is that the AI is scoring only based on the number in the bottom corner of the cards. And there really isn't that much variability in those numbers. I think on the base cards, they go between maybe 6 and 8 or 6 and 9. And I think the highest number on one of those hidden bonus goals is a 10. It may go up to 11, but I think a 10 is the highest one. So even if the AI scores pretty perfectly, it's going to get a score that's somewhere in the range of like 46. And I think most of the games that I've played, I'm scoring higher than that. So as it's set right now, and granted this is a prototype and things may change as it goes to Kickstarter, but the AI itself is not presenting a huge challenge to me. And I don't know if that's because I'm getting good at the game that I've played it so many times now, or if the AI could just be tweaked a little bit, but I will mention that. Again, I like the AI mode because it offers infinite replayability, because things are changing every time, but it might be a little bit easy. The story adventure mode. This one is really cool idea. First off, I love the fact that each scenario has a story, both as an intro to what you're doing and then as a sort of finale when you've won the game. And that the story ties into the birds on the cards that you're supposed to be drafting. I like that each of the scenarios has a different goal that you're trying to meet to win the scenario. And it's kind of interesting that the scenario goals tend to be you have to have a certain bird in your Bandada at the end of the game in order to win, because what that does is it means that in one of the rounds of the game, not only are you forced to take one of the specific cards, which means you have to sort of deal with the manipulation, whether or not it's the one you would have chosen at that time, right? It could screw up your plans a little bit. But it also gives you a specific scoring goal for that scenario that will always show up. So if you play it for the first time, it's cool because it throws a wrench into your plans and you have to try and work around it. If you play it more than once, you sort of know what that bird's scoring goal already is and you can sort of plan ahead for it. So in both of those scenarios, it's pretty cool twists, small twist, but twist to the way that the game plays. Also, some of them have special setup and special bonus scoring goals at the end. You saw the one that I did in a playthrough started with a card face down and I only played 3 rounds. So that was a pretty interesting change to the dynamic of the game. But a couple small things that I don't necessarily like or could be better about this story adventure mode. Well, first off, there are only so many of them, and there are a lot of them in there. Off the top of my head, I think there should be about 3, 6, 9, at least 10 or 11 of these adventure stories, and I wouldn't be surprised if more of them come out in the future. But they're all fairly similar in what you're trying to do, meaning that most of them say you have to have a specific bird. Now, the bird that you need to have is different in all of them, but most of them say you have to have a specific bird, and most of them is just a score goal that you're trying to get over. A couple of them twist that, but even when they twist it, it's maybe having a second bird in your bandada at the end, or maybe even having a third specific bird in your bandada at the end. You saw the one where I started with a particular bird face down. There's another one where you start with a particular bird face up, but it's worth 0 points. So at some point during the game, you have to use that pawn to swap that out for a different card if you want to score any points on it. So there are those small changes, and I do like those small changes, but I kind of wish there was something a little bit more. Also, one thing I did notice is those scenarios where they require you to have 2 specific birds or even 3 specific birds in your tableau at the end of the game could present an unwinnable game occasionally. And what that means is if both of those birds come up in the same drafting round, and I can only draft one of those birds, and the other birds get discarded, that's a problem because I can only draft one and I instantly lose the game because I can't draft the other bird regardless of what I do. So you really have to be careful about that. I mean, the good thing again is that the game is short, so you could just reset and do it again. It's not a big deal. But it is kind of annoying that there is an instant loss like that in the middle of the game based on absolutely nothing that you've done and only on the random draw of the cards. Now, I have spoken with the designer about this and he's aware of this, and other people have already said the same thing as well. So there is a good chance that these scenarios will be tweaked a little bit during the Kickstarter campaign and that these solo scenarios will be a little bit more polished or a little bit more exciting coming up. Again, this is just a preview of a prototype, so I'm only previewing what's given to me and what I've seen so far. But with all that being said, these small little negative things that I've seen are not anywhere near enough to keep me away from this game. It's a small game, it's a quick game. This is a great game because I don't know if this game honestly has a lot of legs, meaning there is a little bit of variability. There are these story adventures, but after I've played through all the adventures, after I've played the AI a bunch, this isn't a game that's going to be constantly played and played and played and played. But it's small, it's a lot of fun, and it's quick, which means this will always likely stay in a collection. And this is the kind of game that even in the future, if I've gotten tired of it for a while, I'll put it away. And then this is the kind of game that sort of on a lunch break at work or on a weekend when I'm sitting around and I have nothing to do and I want to kill some time for a little bit, I'll pull this off the shelf and play through it because it's a lot of fun. Even if it's something that I've done a lot and I've lost the interest of new challenge and new variability, the puzzle is still there every time. And it's a quick, interesting sort of brain bender that's a good way to just run the gears in your head a little bit when you have some free time. So this is not a game that I'm going to pass off because I've gotten tired of it. I'm not going to get tired of it. It's going to sit on the shelf and it will get played in the future, for sure. Now, I haven't touched the multiplayer yet, but the multiplayer is something I'm definitely interested in trying out as well. And I look forward to it because in the multiplayer game, you're both manipulating the same dice in the middle of the table. And you're taking turns doing that. So in the multiplayer, you actually score every time you take a card, and then again at the end of the round. So if you can manipulate the dice to work for you right away when you take the card, you get good points. And then by the end of the round, if you could have kept the dice sort of matching your goals again at the end of the round, you'll score again. So this idea of sort of competing or fighting over manipulating the same dice in the center of the table is something that seems really cool, and I definitely look forward to trying out the multiplayer on this as well. With all that being said, if this is a game that seems like you'd be interested in, definitely check out the Kickstarter. I will put a link down below as soon as I have a link to put there when the campaign goes live. And in the meantime, keep an eye on this. It's definitely a fun game, and I recommend that you check it out. So I look forward to seeing you again next time. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe below, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.